Hello, friends. It's Nikki, and welcome back to my messy bookshelf. Today, I'm here to do my Q&A. A couple of weeks ago, I reached a milestone that I never expected to reach, and that was 1,000 subscribers. And I said I was going to do a Q&A, and many people left me very lovely comments and questions on that video. I also am working on a video with booktubers' favorite videos. So I was having a little bit of an issue with the tech side of that, but I have figured it out. Trying to put clips of other people's videos in my video. But all that to say, today I am here to do my Q&A. And I don't know why, but I have been very nervous to film this video. And it's weird because, I do tags. And I think with tags, answering tag questions is one thing, but answering questions that are directly intended for yourself is another matter. So maybe that's why I'm nervous, but I'll stop rambling and I will get into the questions. I have my iPad here and I will be looking down to read these questions. So the first question I have here is from a channel that is new to me within the last few weeks, and that is the Alobear. She has a channel, and when she does her book reviews, she has a very giant teddy bear that joins her for her book reviews. And she asks me, what's your absolute comfort read? The book you go back to again and again if you have one. And for me, I think I have more comfort authors than comfort books. But if I really think about it, I think there's probably about 4 books that I have read more times than I can count. And Agatha Christie is a favorite of mine. If you've been here, you have heard me mention her before. And The Murder on the Orient Express is a book that I have read so many times. I have no idea how many times I've read that. And Then There Were None is another one. Really, a lot of her books. I have read all of her Miss Marple books and all of her Hercule Poirot books, and all of them are comfort reads for me. But And Then There Were None as a standalone, but that one and Murder on the Orient Express are two of my most read comfort reads. Um, Victoria Holt, The Devil on Horseback, a book that my mother owned, and I read it in my teenage years and went on to pretty much read every Victoria Holt book that I could find at the library. So, those three, and then The Fellowship of the Ring is a book that I return to again and again and again. And those are books that when I am feeling a slump coming on or I just don't know what to read, they always get me back in the groove. So, yeah, those are 4 books plus some others that I read for comfort. The next question comes from another new to me channel, Widely Reading, and I am really enjoying her channel as well. And she asks, how has your channel affected your reading? Do you read more or less? Has it changed you as a reader? And have you found a new favorite genre or author? And I would say I read mostly about the same amount, maybe a little less, because, when I'm planning videos or filming videos, that's time I normally would have spent reading, but it doesn't really take away too much time from my reading. My channel, I think, just meeting other people from other channels has made me venture out into genres that I probably wouldn't have dove into if it wasn't for booktube. Horror being one of them. I've always enjoyed spooky reads, but I feel myself dabbling a little bit further into the horror genre. Sci-fi is not one that I was never interested in, but I didn't know what to read. So I have checked out a few sci-fi books that I probably wouldn't have. And yeah, this month I am reading my first Western. So I think that it's definitely been a positive experience overall, exploring new genres and authors, and even contemporary and literary fiction are things I wasn't super into prior to having a channel. So A new favorite genre or author? I mean, all of those are ones that I are genres that I enjoy now. And then, oh, my next question is from Pat, from Book Chat with Pat. And she left me a very lovely comment. And she said, I know that you've recently retired from a career in the military and that you've gone back to school. I'd love to hear anything you're willing to tell us about your current studies. Have you declared a major? What courses are you taking? And have you read anything wonderful in any of your courses? And yes, I am back in school. This year has been somewhat of a whirlwind. My intention had always been to go into teaching when I retired from the military. And towards the end of my career, I started thinking maybe because I am managing a large amount of people right now, I should look into HR. So I did start off with HR, and I actually was able to earn a one of the lesser certificates for that. But I discovered that's not where my heart lays. The labor laws and things like that are not something I'm super interested in. I think I enjoyed the connections with my young sailors and mentoring and things like that. So, yeah, I think teaching did make a comeback, and then I went back to plan A, which was elementary studies. And when I finally saw the syllabus, I was very, very intimidated by all of the math, and I realized maybe I don't want to teach math, and I don't want to take all of these math courses because I hate math. And there were other things as well. So then here we are. A little bit later, I changed my major to English lit, for what I hope was the final time changing my major. Um, English lit, just English lit right now, and I do have the option. I am early enough on that I can add the teaching track onto it. So I have about a year to make that decision. Um, I haven't read anything great yet because I am early on and I'm taking all of the courses that I kind of want to get out of the way first. Um, one of my courses for this next semester, one of my textbooks is How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler, which is funny because I was just reading that back in like April, I want to say. And I thought it was funny that one of my textbooks is a book that I already had on my shelf, but nothing super interesting so far. And again, things are up in the air because, yeah, teaching was always the plan. I deviated a little as soon as I retired, decided this is, yeah, want to go back to what I am passionate about. And now we have some changes in our family, and my father in law wanting to retire and wants to turn over the family business to my husband. So that will mean changes for me as well, because that would mean work for me as well. So kind of up in the air right now, but I am going to continue on with my studies, which is why I decided English lit, because no matter what, I love English lit. So we're going to do that for right now. And okay, moving on to the next question. Sorry, I rambled a bunch for that question. The next question is from MrsFruity 76, and she asked, what's it like being a college student at this stage in your life? Is it more difficult because life? Simpler because you've gone back to school later in life, or are you taking everything day by day? It is easier. I don't want to say that going to school is easy, but when I first went to college, right after high school, it was super hard because it's college. When I enlisted and I continued to take classes when I was in the service, um, I took classes for many of the 20 years that I served. And, it's kind of funny. My university that I'm enrolled in, I had over 90 credits and they only took 6 of them. So I'm basically a freshman right now. On campus, I was intimidated to go be sitting in classes with, teenagers and young 20 somethings. And then I realized it's actually not that bad. It's like being at work, you know. I think teaching and, a career like the military where you are the oldest person in the room when you're in your 30s and 40s kind of gets you used to hanging around with the 19-year-olds and the 20 somethings. So, um, on campus, not as hard as I thought, but I am taking a lot of online classes now too because I do want to be home and be there for my family. Um, but yeah, without having to have a full time job at the same time, I only have one child in the house now that is not so young. It's a lot easier than it was years ago. So it's a very good experience now. It's much more relaxed than it was in the past. The next question is from a longtime subscriber, BoredBookman, and he asked, "What were your favorite books growing up as a child, teenager, and 20s?" And I've mentioned many of these books before, to the point where I have been trolled by my own child for talking about these books so much. But growing up, I would say The Trumpet of the Swan, The Boxcar Children, Roald Dahl. I loved George's Marvelous Medicine, the BFG, Matilda. And then I moved on to Goosebumps, Fear Street, like many kids of my generation. And then as a teenager, it was Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie, and then historical fiction and fantasy. So, lots of different Agatha Christie's. I read Margaret George a lot, and trying to think, Mary Stuart, Victoria Holt, and yeah, pretty much all of their books. Too many books to name. Alrighty, moving on. Let's see. Cliff from Cliff's Dark Gems asks, um, can you talk about two or three horror books that are on your TBR that you're most excited to read in the future? And having just read The Stand by Stephen King, I am interested in going a little further into the Stephen King universe. And I am really, really wanting to read The Shining. I've heard a few people mention it recently, especially with Horror Mayhem last month, and very intrigued. I love a haunted story, a haunted house, haunted building type of story. So, looking forward to that one. And I am looking forward to House of Splinters by Laura Purcell, which is a prequel to another book I read by her a year or two ago, and it was scary. It was scary. It had just a little more blood and violence than I typically like, but it wasn't the whole story. It was very scary. There's these haunted figures in a manor house. And yeah, I won't say anything else. But yeah, those are two that I am looking forward to. Takes me a while to decide on my next horror book because I am such a chicken when it comes to horror. It has to be not too much blood, not too much gore. If it's a ghost story, all the better. Um, Angelia from Read and Reread, she asked me, or she said, I love that video where your daughter impersonated you. Yes, making fun of me. And she said, do you read together as a family, and have you had some family favorite books or authors? And mostly reading together as a family is like me and my daughter. So the aforementioned children's books that I talked about in one of the previous questions, we loved reading The Trumpet of the Swan together. We loved reading George's Marvelous Medicine together. And Judy Blume, a few Judy Blume books. When it comes to my husband and my son now is just now getting back into reading. He is 19 years old and in college himself. And he just read Strange Pictures and Project Hail Mary and loved them. And that was a very nice experience. For my husband, he's more of a gamer. He does read, not dozens, excuse me, dozens and dozens of books a year, but he reads a few books a year. And with us, it's mostly I am recommending books for him to read because I want to talk to him about them. And when we were dating, we read the Hunger Games series. We read A Song of Ice and Fire. A few years ago, we read The Wheel of Time together, only through book six because we got a little burnt out reading those back to back. And most recently, um, Project Hail Mary and Dungeon Crawler Carl. So we're not sitting communally and reading, but we do share a lot of the same favorite books. Um, Moving on. Let's see. I have some comments that are not questions. Lauren from Youngs and the Restless says, "Tell me about your school." I think I did that in a previous question. And also, I know you're in school. I don't think I know what for. I shared that as well. And tell me about your time in the military. I knew this question was going to come up. Not sure exactly what to share. So, 2005, after I had been out of high school for what, 2 or 3 years, I decided to enlist. I had dropped out of college because I couldn't afford it, was working dead end jobs, and I wanted to do something. And I had always wanted to try the military, and I thought about going into the reserves. And then I talked to a Marine recruiter, and he was very intense. And then the Navy recruiter came along with his swagger and smooth talking, and I ended up joining the Navy. So, yeah, 20 plus years I served on three different ships. I worked a career in undersea warfare and, did multiple deployments. And my first deployment on my first ship, we actually had the very cool experience of circumnavigating the globe. So we went through the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal in the same deployment, which was awesome. Got to visit many different countries and ports, and it was a great experience, especially earlier on. Um, as I got further on in my career, I did 3 years as a Navy recruiter, served on another two ships, and the last few years, more of a leadership role. And I ended my career by teaching young sailors a class on leadership. And, that was a very rewarding aspect of my career as well. Um, Things I remember the most from my career, yes, were the military. We get we can get a bad rap based on, Washington and the few bad eggs that there are, but the most part everybody wants to do something good for our country and, the world. So, yeah, the military, but a lot of what I remember is um humanitarian efforts. Also, on my first deployment, we left in 2009, we came back in 2010, and we got extended on our deployment. Everybody's upset, we want to go home. And then we realized what we got extended for. And we were the closest ship to Haiti when they had their major earthquake. And so we were first on scene. We were able to help with cleanup efforts, medicine, clean water, providing a place for helicopters to stop to drop off physicians and doctors and other aid people from the US and surrounding places. So that was a very rewarding experience. Later on, I was able to actually, when I was dating my husband, we both were able to help in tsunami relief, clearing rubble from a school that had been completely destroyed. Um, a small country, oh, that was in Palau, a small island in the Pacific. Another thing that was very rewarding for me was we had gone to the Maldives, however you want to pronounce it. They were just in the process of having their first women in the military. And so they asked a few of us women if we would be interested in an outreach project and showing them what women in our military were permitted to do, which, spoiler, we could do anything. Do anything except at that time becoming a Navy SEAL or something like that. And so it was very rewarding to see them coming and spending a day with us, looking at us do our daily routine, and being impressed of what we were allowed to do in our country's military. So that was very rewarding. And I'll be sharing some photos along the way. Try not to put too many, but yeah. Overall, it was a great experience, my 20 years. Hard, very hard, especially having someone tell you you're leaving and you are leaving for many months. And yeah, you're leaving this day, especially once I became a mother. That was the most difficult thing that I've ever had to do. And that is why I chose to retire at 20 instead of 30 years. But yeah, I'm glad I did it. It took forever, but it also went by fast, if that makes sense. And I am glad I did it, but I'm glad that it's over and starting a new chapter in life. So, sorry if I rambled too much on that one. Um, DeeGrows 7589 says, I was wondering if you actually have messy bookshelves somewhere in your home other than the very organized ones you film in front of. And yes, I mean, they used to be much messier. I had multiple stacks, I had some stacked on the floor in front of them. I have since purged, but I have a lot of random knickknacks and things around, and some of the shelves off screen do have double stacks of books because, I always say I'm going to get a new shelf and that'll solve the problem, and it doesn't. So, mostly clear now. I have purged a lot of books. I love putting books in little free libraries and donating to thrift shops and things like that. Um, Sam Shook's Books, a channel I'm really enjoying right now. He asks, what is the best book that you have read since starting this channel that you would not have otherwise read? Um, Probably The Count of Monte Cristo. I thought it was a giant, boring, dusty old tome, and hearing people rave about how it's their favorite book and how it's actually a tale of adventure, I took the plunge and I ended up loving, adoring that book. Um, yeah, I would say that one. Let's see. Julie Hughes, 1258 asked, has your experience serving in the military affected your reading taste, and in what ways? Um, Maybe superficially. I don't think that I'm super into like military type books, but I'm not bored when they talk about battle and things like that and military campaigns. I enjoy that stuff in books. I'm not actively reading everything military, but I do enjoy that stuff. And I did serve in the Navy, so I do really, really love a book set at sea. I love books where the characters are on a long voyage. There is hardship and they have to survive, and they're on a quest. And I love exploration. So yeah, I would say that's probably how it has affected me. I, used to talk about books with male coworkers, and I read a lot more. I read a lot of books that not many women that I know would have been willing to read. Master and Commander, Shogun. I mean, I know a lot of women read those books, but I would say a lot of their audience is men. So open to books like that, and also not being, bored with, you know, military jargon and stuff like that. I hope that made sense. Let's see. Fernie4243, another channel that I have recently discovered. She asked me, what is a book that changed your life and how? And I think it's kind of hard to narrow this down. I think that I would say Pride and Prejudice. Just because that was the first classic that I read for pleasure. It wasn't on a, school list. It wasn't because I felt I needed to read it. I read it just because, I had heard good things about it. And it was the book that made me realize, the classics are not boring, and they are actually very accessible, some of them. So, yeah, it kind of opened up a new world for me in being able to read classics, not being a lit major back then. Um, Mark from the book thing says, I seem to remember you saying that your husband is also a reader. Is there a book or an author that you two passionately disagree on? Because I just love drama. And yeah, The Count of Monte Cristo. He hates that book. He despises that book with a passion. And I will constantly try to tell him how wrong he is. How wrong he is. World War Z was another one. I thought he was gonna love that book, and he kind of went, it was okay. I loved that book. Um, Currently, most recently, book 3 in Dungeon Crawler Carl, because we are both reading the series, and in his wrong opinion, he claims that it's the weakest one, and he's entitled to his wrong opinion, but we have biggered about it recently, quite often. All right. Glenn's Bookshelf asks, what are your true crime favorites? Oh my goodness. I'm assuming you're talking about books. Names escape me right now. I read a book written about the Jodi Arias case by the prosecuting. I will post up a photo of the book I am talking about. I cannot remember the prosecuting attorney's name, but it was written by him and it was narrated by him in the audiobook. So that was fantastic. Fantastic. Um what was another one that I liked? There was one about Casey Anthony that I really enjoyed. I should have looked at these questions before. I should have looked at these questions before and written down the names. But I do listen to a lot of true crime podcasts. And now I'm kicking myself because there's like 3 true crime books that I've listened to on audio more than once. And yeah, the Jodi Arias one I mentioned, the Casey Anthony one, and then there was a another case. The woman's first name was Susan, and she was allegedly murdered by her husband, and then he later went on to murder the 2 children, the 2 boys, and that was horrifying, horrifying. And then I also recently read one by, not by, about Chris Watts, and how he murdered his wife and 2 daughters. All of those were excellent books, and I am so ashamed that I cannot remember the titles of any of them right now. So I'm sorry. Those are my favorite true crime books that I've read. Um Candy from the Great Literary Rabbit Hole asks, if you could only keep one shelf of books in your home as they're set up now, which shelf would it be? If you had asked me this a few years ago, I probably would have said my Agatha Christie. Where are my Agatha Christie books? Where are Oh yeah, they're right there. I've been reorganizing my shelves. I would have said that shelf. Now, I think that I would say this classic shelf over here. Um, Having explored classics over the last few years, I now realize classics can be mystery, they can be horror, they can be romance, they can be any number of things. You know, classics is such a broad term. I think we all kind of sort of lump any old books into that category, but they can be anything. So there's so much to choose from on this shelf from any number of genres. So it would be my classics. Um and I think that was the last question. Um yeah, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anyone. I think that was the last question. So I am really happy to have answered these. And oh, something I did want to address when I was talking about my military service. I am very surprised no one has asked what my tattoo is here because it looks funny on camera. It is a torpedo. My husband and I, when we first started dating, we both, I worked on the electronic side of the torpedo launcher, and he worked on like the actual mechanical stuff. And that is how we got to know each other. So we one day, after, as young sailors having a few beverages, we happened upon a tattoo shop that is open on the boardwalk in San Diego late at night, and we got matching torpedo tattoos. So that is what that is. But yeah, thank you so much. If you have watched my channel, still can't believe I hit 1,000 subscribers, and I still think it's not real. But yeah, I'll be hopefully releasing that other video I mentioned here in the coming week or the week after, now that I figured out how to insert clips into my video. But thank you again, and I'll stop rambling now. I thank you so much if you posted a question, if you've ever watched one of my videos, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.